This is AFTERBUZZ TV Bar Rescue After Show with me.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AFTERBUZZ TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
If you get in trouble.
Hello, Bar Rescue fans. What a surprise we have. I was texted this morning by one of my best friends, if not my best friend, Jon Taffer, saying, hey, I'm in LA. And I said, oh, you are? You might regret saying that because we're doing the Bar Rescue after show. Jon Taffer in studio with Gabby and I. Hello, sir.
Hey, Kev. How are you, buddy?
And
for those of you that don't know, this place, AFTERBUZZ, the facility is unbelievable. What you built here is incredible, and people don't understand the mass of what you've done here, the amount of studios, the amount of content you put out, the amount of shows you guys touch, the amount of hosts that work here, the amount of young people that you touch every day. You know, you talk about everybody else all day long. I want to take a second and talk about you and what you've accomplished here, right? Gabby, that what you've built here is incredible.
And it's been years that you've been putting, all your effort into this. And I just watched a clip, I don't know if you saw it, on the internet that he shared on Facebook where you were doing an entrepreneur interview.
With Pat O'Brien.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah, they interviewed me on Business Rockstars.
It was great.
Well, what you're doing is really important. Not only are you redefining content and content distribution from a business standpoint, look at the opportunity you're providing for young people to host these shows and the platform that you're providing. Look at how you're taking work from people like me and bringing it out to a whole new level with a whole new platform. And there's a lot of good that happens in this building. Yeah. It emulates from you. And that's never said really on air here at AFTERBUZZ before, so I wanted to start there. Now we can talk about Bar Rescue if you like.
And it's so great too to not get Taffered. When I saw you walk in, I said, "Oh, I almost wish he had the blazer." But he did the walk, that swagger he does, that the sheriff's in town. So when he walked, we have a very long hallway, and he came in, and I said, "Oh my God, we're in for it." And no, we weren't. We got approved.
Oh, it's great.
We don't need to be rescued.
Great space.
All positive here today.
Yeah, we don't need to be rescued.
It's a fun place.
Well, I mean, you're definitely not going wrong. You have the signage everywhere. The brand looks good, right, Jon?
Well, but he has his layers of finishes out there and high tables for host interaction and bar stools with no backs, Gabby, right?
Right.
To stimulate interaction.
That's right.
He's got the right level and the right video placement with the right viewing windows for everybody. I mean, the fact of the matter is this place was set up with all of those human dynamics and interaction things that I live with every day. So it's really fun to see it applied.
You taught us all of this, and I encourage people, if you're any small business owner or business owner in general, or even a manager, watch Bar Rescue to learn. If you're bar restaurant, it's mandatory. But even if you have other businesses, so our staff here for the first 2 years, I would make them watch. And because of all the principles. And you see a lot of these principles that I would not have known if it weren't for Bar Rescue.
They cross over.
The multiple textures, like you said, the bar stools without the without the backs, I mean, just, something. It's been such a blessing, this show, and I took full advantage of it, like I always do. And then, of course, to become friends and off air, get the advice I get from you, Jon. So it's been another amazing season. We were really upset a couple of weeks ago. I believe it was the Shapiro family. I was really mad at them. Last week was amazing because it was historic, and it was a family. And then this week, Chase Lounge really just centered on this one stepson. And man, he reeked of millennial in the respect that, Gabby, I know we'd probably get into this. But
we definitely get into this.
Well, just in the respect of the stepfathers, like rubbing his back, and they kept placating to him. And he did the millennial thing you guys all do, where they've learned enough to say all the right lines. So they'll say, yes, I take responsibility for this, I own this, and then they think they're supposed to get a star on their forehead for doing that, rather than, that's not enough. And that's what I get a lot of times when I deal with the millennials and I correct them. And with this kid, he did that, but somehow he actually followed through, and he did.
It was definitely transformational.
Oh, it
this
was
episode.
incredible to watch him do it. He not only did it physically, he really did it. And, you know, Gabby, I get to look in their eyes for hours. You guys just get to see it for 42 minutes. I know when it's real or not. Their body language changes, Kev. They walk different. You know, when you look in their eyes, you can see the difference. There's a new energy. They feel directed. You can sense that rather than not going anywhere, they're actually going somewhere. And you can see it when you talk to them. But you know, it's interesting what you were saying, and you might actually agree with me on this. People use the term AI, artificial intelligence. I use the term defining millennials in some cases as artificial identity. So because of social media today, you can create a personality on social media. You can fake your success. You can call yourself an executive producer. You can call yourself a writer. You can call yourself a host. You can create the greatest Facebook or social media presence in the world, and it's all BS. Now, at some point, the reality is going to hit. But for years, when you're young and you're forming yourself, and I watched my daughter go through this until she went out in the workplace and became real too, is you can fake it. Now, you and I couldn't fake it. We didn't have the opportunity to create an artificial identity.
No.
So what happens with a guy like Chase?
And the biggest thing people did, John, was create a fake business card, and that was the biggest deal
yes.
in the world.
I love the comedian who says, I meet producers every day. The only thing they ever produced was a business card. Right?
But that's it. But that was the furthest you could go. But continue, please.
So what happens, and I believe in millennials, is you grow up with this artificial identity. And then you hit the street. And that artificial identity is going to erode as reality starts to erode it down. You know, you're not quite the hot shit you thought you were. You're not quite this, you're not quite that. And artificial identity and reality start to whittle down. I don't believe it takes till they start to hit about 30 until the balance. And when we do marketing research, years ago, the center point marketing point that you wanted to hit was about 26 years old. If you hit a 26-year-old, 40-year-olds respected the 26. They were cool, they were hip. 21s looked up to the 26, they had a job. Now that number is closer to 30. And it's because millennials are just aligning a little late. And I believe that's that whole artificial identity has to be balanced by the reality of life. You got to get whacked a few times.
Okay, and to that point, John, I feel like a lot of those parents weren't whacking the kids.
Yes.
You saw it in this episode tonight, and they've raised these kids to believe that they could have the artificial identity.
Yep, and for Chase, that 4-day experience was it whittled away his artificial identity, and suddenly I was successful with him, and I'm not with everyone, of making him actually go home that night and think, what does he want to be? What kind of man does he want to be?
I think it's because, he wasn't getting very much direction from his parents. There was not a lot of guidance when he came in to own this business at 20%. He had no structure to what he was doing day to day. And he needed kind of someone to manage him in order to be able to manage. And so it was nice to see you kind of get in there and clean it up. But I will say, because I'm in that demographic of a millennial, that it almost seems to be a bigger problem for the people at the generation younger than me, because they grew up with even more AI than I did. Because I was still around when there were, house phones.
Right.
The cell phones were huge at the time. They had beepers when I was a kid. So I think I came in, and I'm 28, so I'm just around Chase's age. But I think it's going to be a bigger problem for these kids coming up.
So what you're saying is your parents, when you were younger, weighted you and sort of kept your AI in line.
They did.
I think your mom
Chase's
did, right?
parents
Yeah.
didn't.
It was,
I mean, kids these days are getting iPads at like 3 years old.
Right. So
Very
Chase's
different.
parents didn't. So that becomes my role. And we've seen this in other episodes of Bar Rescue. And one that really comes to mind, the most powerful moment for me ever in Bar Rescue, if I can deviate for a moment,
Please.
was when I did the bar for the couple from the Dominican Republic who, and you'll remember this episode, I got in the SUV with the gentleman's wife, with
Cheating.
JP's wife.
Yeah.
And she got in my SUV, and people don't know this, I stay away from the upfront research in Bar Rescue. I stay away from casting. I don't want to know anything about these people till I show up. I show up, and I get about a 60-second brief. You've been there, Kev, so you know this is all true. I get about a 60-second brief. This is who they are. This is how in debt they are. This is who their family is. This is a brief story. And then I get in the SUV, and I do recon. And I get in the SUV, and all I'm told is I'm doing recon with his wife, which is great. And she gets in with a gift bag into my car, Gabby. And I looked at her. I said, "Hi, how are you? What is that?" She goes, "Oh, it's a gift bag. It's my husband and my 14th anniversary." And I said, "Great. What'd you get him?" And she looked at me and said, "Divorce papers." And I was floored. And then she went on to tell me how he womanized and cheated on her. And then we watched on the screen during the episode a young girl saying, "Are you married to him?" And he goes, "Oh, there's no ring on this finger." And she's watching this. And now she runs in, throws a drink in his face, rips his shirt, and all of this happens. And for the next 3 days, I beat the hell out of this guy as a father, as a husband. You remember this episode.
You killed
and
him.
he was a big, tough guy. I made him this big. In more than one way. and we were sitting outside, and you didn't see this because it didn't make the cut. He looked at me and he started crying, and he said to me, "Since I lost my father when I was 9 years old, nobody has ever talked to me that way because I would have beat him up, and I had to take it from you." And he changed. And they tore up the divorce papers before I left. About a month ago, I got an email that they're having a baby.
No way.
And he was one of the ones that I would have never thought would have turned, Kev, because he was such a jerk in the beginning. And in the end, he became a great guy. You know, another one that comes to mind, just talking about turns, is Jerry from Sordy's Bar. It was the hostile takeover. I threw him out with his partners.
Yes, yeah.
And he was a drunken fool. Jerry hasn't had a drink since. Sordy's is number one bar in every newspaper and poll. He's racing cars now. I mean, it's an incredible turn. Some people are just good people in a bad spot, and all they need is that nudge. And other people are not good people.
That's just it. Yeah.
And they don't care about their employees and the fact that they're not making a living and can't pay their bills. It means nothing to them. You know, and the fact that employees or customers are overserved and you know, go to a disgusting, I mean, it doesn't mean anything to them.
Does it ever get discouraging for you to see people that are hard to help?
No, it's more of a challenge, honestly. It really doesn't discourage me. And I'm lucky, Gabby, because I get a hug, you know, 70 to 80% of the time, and I feel the sincerity of that hug. So it's sometimes a really rough 4 days. I mean, I look at the best Bar Rescue episodes, and they were my toughest. I mean, Pirates, that was a rough 5 days for me.
Yes.
I mean, to be with these people for 5 consecutive days, 12 hours a day, was the most frustrating 5 days of my life.
Wow.
Angering 5 days. Overwhelming. Unpleasant is a good word. Every minute of it was unpleasant. You know, the Headhunters episode that I went in with my wife, and there were cockroaches everywhere, and they walked across her toes and her shoes. And I mean, every minute of that was...
He was a bad guy, though,
He
too.
was, and it was unpleasant. And, you know, Jerry was unpleasant at Sordy's. Right. And Chase was unpleasant at minute. But the fact is, you know, the Bar Rescue experience for me is not pleasant. I mean, I walk into really difficult situations
out in the middle of nowhere
with hostile people.
Yes.
Yeah, very hostile.
And I don't let my producers do anything. You know that, Kev.
Right,
Everything is live as it unfolds. I'm not protected. I'm not defended from a story, or they can say anything they want to me anytime they want. And it is sometimes, but the inspiration of that hug and the feeling that I get on those really strong days, not when I move a wall, when I move a person, it makes that whole unpleasantry really worth it.
I always wonder when you leave, John, when you do that last walkout, and are you just exhausted? Does it just because you're all on adrenaline of those 4 days, and then do you just...
Yeah, I'm always, you know, there's certain emotions that you feel each night because it is so personal, and you've been there. You know, Maria's teared up when she was there looking at the first one when we did Agave Junction together. It's powerful. Yep. And you should come do Recon in January.
I would love to.
And experience it, Gabby, because it's really intense because the cameras disappear and it's me and them. And it's intense. And that intensity, Kev, takes me on an emotional roller coaster. So, you know, at Recon night, when I go back to my room, of course, I'm spent. But, you know, either I'm concerned about pulling it off. I feel terrible for them. You know, there was an episode I just did last week in flooded Louisiana. The guy's family's living miles from him. And his kids are wearing other people's clothes. And you know, after Recon that night, I mean, I went home with tears in my eyes. I got to help this family. I mean, it was really an emotional experience for me. Sometimes I'm angered after Recon night. Sometimes I'm challenged at Recon night. The second day is the powerful one for me because day 2, and it is just like on TV, day 2 is typically the staff meeting, training, stress test. That's the toughest day for me because that's when I have to get everything out of all the employees. I'm dealing with all the interpersonal, all the tension, all the fights happen that day, stress test. Kev, I'm just emotionally exhausted when I get home that night. And then the third day is training. That's a pretty easy day, and a sit down, and then a review. And what people don't know about Bar Rescue, and I'm taking an opportunity of being here together, is, and do this. Next time you have one of the Bar Rescue experts on, ask them on camera, off camera, what's their favorite time of Bar Rescue? And my guess is everyone will tell you the same one. And that is after recon, and fans don't know this, after recon, I've never been in a bar before. So after recon, we turn the cameras off, we put all of the employees in a van in the parking lot, and I go in and design the bar that night. So recon is over, it's about midnight. I go in the bar with about 25 people. My art department, my experts happen to be there, some of the story producers and people are there, my production team is there, and I walk into the bar and I gotta figure out what to do with it. And sometimes there's a beam that becomes an inspiration, sometimes there's a market inspiration, a physical inspiration. The ceiling height makes it a barrel room. The ceiling lowness makes it something else. And so they're about 20-minute designs. And we design the bar that night, and we come up with, this is going to be here, it's going to be here, this is the overall concept, overall look, this is the color palette, blah, blah, blah. I want to move a station here, a POS there, blah, blah, blah. All my team is making notes, and we design the bar in about 15 minutes and leave.
Are you ever stumped? Is there ever a bar you've walked into and you didn't know what to do with it?
Interestingly enough, the one that stumped me probably the most, and you've seen me go in and do this, I believe, Kev, it is the 38th floor episode, which was this narrow little storefront on a street. And it was so narrow, I couldn't figure out what to do with it. And that was the one, Kev, where I put the video monitors in vertically with comms between them and made it look like the 38th floor of an office building in San Francisco. And then I put a video feed from the 38th floor into it. And the reason why I did that is the narrowness of the room wasn't much wider than the studio. The narrowness of the room, I had to create something that you looked through when you saw that wall. And it had these vertical things that I said, wow, this could be an office building. So we made it the 38th floor. You remember this episode. And you entered through an elevator. And you came out the other side of the elevator, and you were on the 38th floor, and those were now windows. And that one took me about an hour and 15 minutes to come up with.
Oh, wow. Sometimes
I walk in, and it's a 5-minute design. Sometimes it's a 20-minute design. Sometimes it's longer. But Gabby, I got no choice. I got to walk out with something.
Right. Now, is that from years of experience, having to be able to create something within 5 minutes and be able to get it done?
Well, that's after 132 bar rescues. No, real life is I would study it, go home, I would work it, redesign it again, play with the palettes, play with the finishes. I'd massage it, I'd sleep on it, I'd show it to people. I don't have any of those luxuries with bar rescue. So I have to live with what I choose. Then the next day, so that night we have a design. The next morning, we got to pick bar stools, pick carpets, but only certain carpets are available, Cubs. So now I got to change the design because I can only get this carpet. But then I can only get so many bar stools. I got to get so many chairs. So now I got to change that design element to make that work. But then I can't get the lights that I wanted because they have a whole different look. These are more different kind of pendants. So now that doesn't match the wallpaper that I can get, which no way matches the bar stools that I already did get. So I mean, what we choose to come up with and what we finish with are often not exactly the same thing. The concept is the same, because it's still driven by demographics and competitive and all those things. But the way we execute the concept within the four walls is very much narrowed by what I can do and when I can do it. Then holiday weekends we shoot, forget about it, Kev. I mean, how do you get 80 bar stools on a holiday weekend and have any kind of selection?
Wow.
When you're in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
These are the things people don't realize.
So it's a moving target. And so day 2, by the end of day 2, I have to have all that done. So by the end of day 2, not only do I have to have the stools, the wallpapers, the finishes, and I sign off on everything. Picked out, I'm going into my art tent, consistently working with my team to do that. I have to have the logo done by the end of day 2 to the sign company. I mean, I've got about 12 hours to get a logo done, that's it.
And these people all know you and are they come back as clients, I guess?
Well, this is my crew.
But the people you're ordering from,
because
you're consistently using the same people, so they're aware that they need to get stuff done.
But that's not the case, though. I mean, I can't use a bar stool company in New York for a remodel in Los Angeles.
Right.
So I am limited regionally. So I do use the same people regionally and locally, but there isn't one guy I can go to for a sign. That's got to be local. And he's got to pull permits and get and deal with his
the
ordinances.
signs do, because I can tell you're limited permit wise. Like sometimes we get the great signs, sometimes
Well, it's not only that, Kev. It's the time period, because signs have to be manufactured. So getting channel letter signs, getting really detailed box signs, getting them produced in 18 hours and hung becomes really a challenge. So we're stuck with two-dimensional signage. When I can do more, I do. Some of it's based on a city, some of it's based on a guy. Some of them they just like, you give me 12 hours, you're on a flat sign. I can't do anything else. So it's very frustrating, Gabby. Everything you think you want to do, you can't necessarily do.
Right.
So by the end of day 2, all that has to be done. And then day 3, at the end of day 2, stress test. At the end of day 3,
dealing with morons. Go ahead.
At the end of day 3, I turn over construction to my team at 6 p.m. on day 3. Normally we wrap at midnight on day 1 and day 2, right, for recon and stress test. We wrap at about 6 o'clock on day 3. My art team then goes to work. They work that evening on day 3, all day 4, and the morning of day 5, which is about 36 hours, 38, 39 hours. And then on day 5 at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the employees arrive in a white van. You've seen it, Kev, with blindfolds on. Yep. They've never been there. They've never seen it. We line them up in front, and then I show them the bar. And day 2 and day 3, as we're building it, obviously I have to deal with things. I'll visit the site. You've seen that. That's the scene where I'm wearing the hat. That's typically in the middle of remodeling when I'm addressing issues.
I love that you guys, when you edit that.
Nice.
No, I know I'm going to get a good one when I see when you get in there with the...
But that's typically the middle visit. So we've already started building it, so I'm there solving issues that are coming up as we go. Again, Kev, it's almost when you built the studio. You didn't plan every detail. No. So you're sort of working it as you go. Right. So decision 2 changes decision 3, 4, and 5.
So that brings up, I asked you off camera before if you had any regrets about any of your things, and I felt the response was that you didn't, because how could you when you're that limited?
Oh, no,
do you have any?
No, not really. When I look back at it, I say to myself, I'm driven by demographics and huge experience. And, when it comes to building and concepting bars, I don't think there's anyone in the world who has more experience than I do. So, if you sit down and that you're the best poker player in the world and you lose a tournament tonight, then you don't have many regrets. The cards didn't go my way that particular time. But you can't look back and say, I'm still not the best poker player in the world. So, like you, I feel I'm very good at what I do. When I look back at the ones that I've done, there are some that I like more than others. I didn't love the retro bar in Milwaukee. That's probably my least favorite concept. I was trying to target a millennial group, and I worry that one sometimes was too cutesy. Okay. And it leaned a little cuter than hipper. And, where we started and where we wound up on that one, because we based what we could get and use furnishings and such, the patterns and stuff weren't quite as cool as I would have hoped it all worked out to be. So, that's probably the one physically that I might regret. None others, honestly, Kev. The O-Face bar, I don't know if you know what happened with them. That was my second walkout. He got arrested for molestation and sexual abuse and took a plea a couple of weeks ago.
No way. I did not know that.
That was in the paper. So
clearly
they
were every bit the villain we knew. I mean,
absolutely.
Remember, they were violent. They were a bad group. We were talking about the really rotten team. Like, who was... Cockroach Guy's up there in my book as one of the bad people. These were probably the worst.
And the punk rock guy, who I walked out on this season.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
He was...
was he a bad guy, or he just seemed very stubborn?
He was spoiled and stubborn.
Yeah.
People actually liked him.
I'm going to keep the punk scene alive, man.
Yeah, he had a bit of a trust fund, so he was so he was just trying to be his definition of cool.
Yeah,
sort of the AI we were talking about, Gabby.
Yes.
If you know what I mean.
Well, having his own little basement bar for his friends, and he had the money to bankroll
it. So
he
had his punk bar, and he wanted to keep his punk bar, and then I didn't want to do that, so he walked out. I don't regret that one. Certainly don't regret walking out of O-Face.
No.
And then
there's only been 2
I'm going to get a kick
right,
out
John?
of it. Excuse me?
There's only been 2 walkouts.
There's been O-Face.
Yeah.
Extremes when I walked out the second time.
That's right.
And then the punk rock bar.
Okay, I forgot about
which I loved. That was one of my favorite scenes ever in Bar Rescue. So I'm going to put a whole lighting system in there to drive late night, but you wouldn't know about that. No, you don't know about that. And then I'm going to put in some, but you don't know about that.
Remember the trucks were coming on the way with
I had them in the parking lot with everything.
Oh my God, all this equipment.
We're not messing around. We were starting in about an hour. And by the way, when that stuff happens, I wish I could be in the control trailer, because my producers have no idea I'm going to do that. So I'll always remember that one of my favorite stories in Bar Rescue was when I did the Nasty Ham, which was the first season.
Yeah, the Angry Ham.
Angry Ham, thank you. The first season, and LL, the hockey player, was
Byers, Lyndon Byers.
Lyndon Byers, who's a good friend of mine now. Matter of fact, I did his radio show a couple weeks ago. LL was in it with a couple of partners, and I went in to meet with them. And this was the first season, I believe, so nobody really knew who I was yet.
Yeah.
So they looked at me and said, we're not sure we're going to change the name. We're not sure. I said, you know what, then F you, I'm not doing it. And I walked out. And everybody in the production trailer says, we have no show. What are we going to do? And I just said, and I just kept walking. And, of course, they came out and chased me. And in my business, to keep it real, you got to keep it real, which means you got to be willing to pay the price of the consequence of keeping it real.
Mm-hmm.
So I take some chances, and those are fun moments for me when I do those kind of shifts and walk out, and production doesn't know I'm doing it.
I was going to ask you, do you have the ability you can walk out whenever?
Anytime. I'm executive producer of my show. The next person on set is Katie Dirks, who is co-executive producer. I run my show, Kev.
But even Spike doesn't say, John, hello, we spent a lot of money to send you down
Never.
there.
What'll happen is I'll say I'm not doing this, I'm doing that, and then my production team gets on the phone with the network and has to deal with that.
Right.
And it's never,
and either find another bar or...
Never has the network come back to me and said, no, you cannot do what you want to do, John.
It's because you are
Never.
more than a host.
Well,
clearly you have that
also,
executive
but
producer
also,
title and you're doing everything.
But also over 100 episodes in, and he's done 3. He's 3 walkouts. So you can trust him that if he's walking out, it's for good reason.
Right.
Also, I've had my spats. Now, I've got to tell you, I'm not sure there's a television host on TV who's closer to their network or loves them more than I do. I'm really close to the team at Spike, and I love them. And I mean that with all sincerity.
Yeah, you are, Spike.
I'm extremely close to them. They're my buddies. I go to dinner with them. I hang with them. But there were times over the years that I was once walked around a set that I shut down myself. I shut the show down in the first season, I believe 4th episode. And told the VP of the network to go F himself. And then the show shut down in production. I made him sit in a McDonald's for 4 hours. He wasn't even allowed on set until the people flew in. And then, I was walked around the block by another network executive who said to me, listen, John, we love you, but you can't tell the VP to go F himself. You just can't do that,
So
John.
mean.
So since I'm close to all of these people, but you got to realize I put myself out there every day. And I expose myself. Mm-hmm. And I'm not the type to typically do that. So when I expose myself in that way, it's going to be on my frickin' terms, not yours. And that's the way the show has always been from day one, on my terms, not theirs. And it works, and we respect each other.
Yes.
And, when I get in these spats with the network, which are very few, and again, haven't had them in years, I remember one conversation where I said, guys, you bought my show because I'm a lion, and then when I roar, you get pissed. Understand what I am.
By the way, it's Howard Stern. It's any of the greats that give us great content. Yeah, that's what you're getting.
Yes, you hired a lion and you want me to act like a cat and a pussycat, and that's not going to happen. So we really understand each other. We got on.
But you make great TV, and 100 episodes in, and these guys don't understand because they're younger. But there's the most legendary sitcoms and things that don't go 100 episodes.
No, we're going to cross based on our commitments now, and I'm doing 10 back to the bars. Right now, I'm doing 10 more bar rescues next year, which will take Bar Rescue up to 142.
Wow.
And we'll probably do a few more. It'd be fun to take it past 150. Very few shows have gone that far.
That's just insane.
Yeah.
I mean, to think even that you were able to find 150 bars with casting.
Oh, there's thousands.
I know there's thousands, but that are willing to commit and expose themselves as well.
Well, Gav, they want the free work and the publicity. Anyone with a brain.
I will say that, yes, the publicity is great. You get a whole makeover.
$500,000
but then there are
makeover.
these spoiled brats, and not everybody
Well, they do it
in
after
the world is as open.
After the fact, they say they shoot their mouths off. But that's and again, you're dealing with. We've talked about this before, John, but you're dealing with a group of people. There's a lot of addiction in that area. There's a lot of unhealthy behavior. So you're
and
going to get
social
that.
addiction, even if it's not drug or alcohol addiction.
Social addiction.
They're addicted to being the big shot in a room, so they got to buy everybody drinks.
Listen to that,
They don't drink
Gabby.
themselves.
That's good.
So, Mr. Ego, I'm Mr. Big Shot, right? I'm going to buy everybody the drinks. I'm Mr. Big Shot. I can't feed my frickin' kids at home, but here, I'm Mr. Big Shot. There's that one. Then there's a guy who's Mr. Big Shot on somebody else's money. You've seen those before. Chase is almost an example of that,
I've
right?
seen a lot of it.
Big shot on somebody else's money. That's even worse than a big shot on your own money. You know, then there's the guy who's, you know, socially addicted to women. Right? So you walk in those big browns, right? You know, you smile that big smile, and son of a gun, you got whatever you want, Gabby, because he is socially addicted to feeling good to women. Then look at Sal from Dimples. Blow, baby, blow.
Oh, God.
With the young
Creepy,
girls
man.
and the
Creepy,
horny hat
yeah.
and addicted to the interaction with women. So the addiction is interesting, Kevin, and you know human nature being better than I do, especially with your carny experience and the things we've talked about over the years, because you've seen pretty dark sides of the world.
I have, yeah.
We both have. But those addictions run deep. Then there's the girl who's addicted to just men and feeling important around men. And then there's, you know, the waitress who has to be, she's addicted to being praised by management every frickin' minute. You know those.
Yes. Yeah.
So everybody has these addictions.
Social
we
addictions.
We just call it needs.
Right.
Great.
You know, John, I think just your next chapter, I think you need to bring, thank you, Marissa, I think you need to bring some more light on. So, there's always takeaway. Even on our after show, I'm learning. So, artificial
intelligence.
Artificial identity.
Or identity.
Okay, my radar is up for that now. But then social addiction.
Mm-hmm.
I've never heard of that, and it does make sense. Oh my God, it makes so much sense.
We thrive on that today.
We really do. So, John,
Especially
have to,
in LA. I mean, come on, Kevin.
Yeah, oh, I mean, I know that, but I think
It's all over.
No. But I see it in all of them, in not just show business, but other microcosms. I see it in a bar or a restaurant. He's the big shot. She's the boss. Do you know what I mean? Like
He's the player.
Yes, yeah,
That guy's.
yeah, and it just makes a lot of sense. So, John, we have to wrap up. Obviously, we're going to be here every other week. Next week is an interesting one because we have a war veteran, and I know how sensitive you are with those guys. So I think that one's going to be pretty epic.
There's a story on that episode that I want to call in and tell you after it. It's
Okay.
really.
All right.
He gave me something at the end of that episode that made me cry for about 40 minutes.
You know, John,
It was really touching.
Okay, even if your schedule's wonky next week, because I know you're shooting back to bar, just if I could record you off air, we could talk about it. I would love that.
Sure.
John, you are such a blessing to all of our lives, my life personally, Maria's. I'm so grateful you came here. I'm so grateful you brought me this show, because again, like, I don't know this place would not be what it is without you and without Bar
thanks,
Rescue.
Jeff.
And I look forward to so much more. And I got to get you on the Tomorrow Show. You're around this week.
I am. I'll do it with you.
Please, I would love that, because I want more millennial stuff, man. I want to hear. What else do we want to promote, John? What's coming up? Oh, we have the Halloween Marathon.
Oh,
We're
yes.
going to see pirates.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to see Cockroach
Your
Man.
faves, Kev.
Everybody.
All of the worst weeks of my life.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, John. I'm sorry, but it's the best.
I know.
And Maria's gone this weekend, so guess what I'm doing?
You're vegging out.
I am. I'm holding up, man. I'm so
Wait,
excited.
being on that subject, I have a question before we go.
Yes.
Are there any more Looney Tunes coming up?
Oh, of course.
Okay, because we're looking for it. Those are
Yes.
our favorites.
Yeah, there are some Looney Tunes coming up. As a matter of fact, I had my 3 of my most emotional and probably my looniest coming in the back 8 or so that are yet to air.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
So
I gotta tell you,
Spoiler alert.
I can tell you this. There was one night that I went home and looked at my wife, Nicole, and says, this was the worst Bar Rescue day of my life.
No way.
really?
Oh, yeah. You'll see it in a few weeks.
I can't
Yeah.
wait.
Yeah.
Oh
I'm
my God!
excited.
And so John, you did slip it in there in January. We could do AfterBuzz could do some recons. Just saying. So
Yes.
we might have to hold you
Yes.
to
I
that.
think Gabby needs to experience.
I do
Yeah.
need to experience
Yeah.
it. I'm the only one so far.
No, let's go in as AfterBuzz,
You
like
and
the
Dorinda.
AfterBuzz Bar Rescue after
We'll
show.
do it.
Who's
That'd be
better
fun.
than us? We've seen every episode.
I'm all about it.
We'll do it, and we'll do a Bar Rescue party opening night.
Yeah, you're right. Oh my God, we can, and you know what? We can stock the place for them. Like we could get 250 hosts to show up. That's not a problem. The AfterBuzz Army will come to life. All right, you guys, we could keep talking forever. Gab, where do we find you?
You guys can find me on Instagram at Gabby.Loren or Twitter at Gabrielle_Loren.
John,
You
where do it's at Jon Taffer, right?
At Jon Taffer or Jon Taffer's everywhere.
Jon Taffer.
JONTAFFER in any platform.
Wonderful. At Undergaro, you guys, and it was a pleasure. We will be back next week, right, with Dorinda,
With Dorinda.
our 17 years bar experience, and I don't know. check out the Tomorrow Show this week. I think I'm going to be able to rope Jon in to have more discussions about how wonderful the millennials are.
You will. From executive producers Maria Menounos, Keven Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.